I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, Washington state's sanctuary policies could result in an accused cop killer walking free. Plus, RFK Jr. calls out U.S. Senator Patty Murray for her virtue signaling during a hearing. Also, Starbucks baristas walk off the job upset over their new dress code. That and much more coming up today on Undivided. Help us reach our goal of adding 300 new paid subscribers over the next 30 days. To help convince you, we're offering 30% off your first year of Undivided. Just use the promo code 300 at patreon.com/undivided. That's the number 300 at patreon.com, patreon.com/undivided. Hello, and welcome to Undivided on this Thursday. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. There are profound consequences of providing a sanctuary for criminals. You know that. We know that. Common sense people know that. It's not some innocent thing, and it's not some righteous thing to say we're going to provide a sanctuary for anyone and everyone, no matter the circumstance, no matter where they came from, to be in our state, to live amongst us, in our communities, and to protect them from federal immigration agents and enforcement. And there's this constant argument about, are they criminals once they're here, or are they just working? Their very first act on the soil of this nation was to break the law, was to come into this country illegally while so many are doing it the right way. And so I'm just done hearing that excuse, and especially when you have cases like this. So there's no doubt that Washington State Patrol Trooper Christopher Gadd would be alive today if it weren't for Washington's sanctuary policies. No doubt. You'll, of course, remember this case from March of 2024, been about a year, a little over a year. Christopher Gadd, just 27 years old, was out doing his job, protecting and serving in our communities, when he was struck from behind by a vehicle going 100 miles an hour, driven by an illegal alien named Raul Benitez Santana, 33 years old. He was accused of driving under the influence. Trooper Gadd was on I-5, pulled over to the side, doing a DUI patrol, when Benitez Santana, under the influence, 100 miles an hour, into the back of him, dead at the scene. Husband, father, young man, whole life ahead of him. And of course, after that happened, we learned that, first of all, the suspect was in the country illegally, and that he'd been contacted on multiple occasions during his time in our state illegally by law enforcement, but because of our sanctuary policies, was not turned over to ICE, was not deported from this country. So he got to break the law in this state. He got to continue to live in this state. And that allowed him to be on that road, driving drunk at 100 miles an hour, hitting and killing a Washington State Patrol trooper. So that's already bad enough. So we already know what Washington's sanctuary policies allowed for. Well, now Washington's sanctuary policies might allow this criminal, cop-killing illegal alien to walk away scot-free. So today was supposed to be the day that Raul Benitez Santana's jury trial began. Should be happening right now as we speak in Snohomish County. Why isn't it? Well, his defense team has filed a motion for dismissal. And in our state, I would not be surprised if it's granted. The basis for the motion for dismissal was reported by Como News. I want to give Jeremy Harris at Como credit for this. The defense attorneys claim that prosecutors colluded with ICE in this case. It says, days before a trial is expected to begin for the man charged with killing a Washington state trooper, defense attorneys have filed a motion to dismiss the case because of allegations that prosecutors violated the state's sanctuary laws by colluding with Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the weeks after charges were filed. Defense attorneys Tiffany Mecca and Emily Hancock allege a staffer in the Snohomish County Prosecuting Attorney's Office engaged in, quote, outrageous government misconduct by asking ICE officials in Seattle if they could put a detainer on Benitez Santana ahead of a court hearing last spring where he was asking for a reduced bail. So their argument is that act of a staff member in the prosecuting attorney's office to proactively contact ICE in case a judge released or reduced bail so much that he could get out, that act not only violated Washington's sanctuary laws, but prejudiced the entire jury pool against their client by letting the public know, essentially, that this is someone who's in the country illegally. So defense attorneys allege communication between the prosecutor's office and ICE violated the Keeping Washington Working Act and the Court Open to All Act. Emails cited in the defense memo show a legal assistant at the Snohomish County Prosecuting Attorney's Office contacted ICE on March 6th and asked about the possibility of putting a federal hold on him in anticipation of a proposed bail reduction. Here's what that staff member's email to ICE said. We believe defense is going to schedule a motion to reduce the bail in the next couple weeks. We would love to be wrong on this, but we need to prepare just in case. When I spoke to our jail, they indicated that it is unlikely that any bond company is going to be willing to post $1 million bail, so I do think we're safe currently. However, defense may decide to file a motion to reduce bail, and we may get a judge who is known for making unbelievable rulings hear the motion and decide to reduce the bail. So here you have this staff member who is rightfully concerned that you've got a guy who's in the country illegally to begin with, Benitez Santana, facing a very serious charge, facing a lot of time in prison for killing a state trooper. You've got judges who are known for reducing bail, and they did ultimately reduce bail in this case to $100,000 from $1 million for killing a cop. Yeah. So this staffer was reaching out to ICE to say, hey, would you guys hold him in an ICE detention facility or put a detainer on him so he's not out on the streets and possibly free to flee back to Mexico? Because of that simple common sense act, and because it violates our state's sanctuary laws about cooperation between local jurisdictions and the federal government for immigration efforts, a judge is considering right now whether to throw the whole case out. It's going to make a decision on Monday. Sick to my stomach over it. Can you imagine? And the thing is, in any reasonable, common sense, sane environment, you would think, well, of course that's not going to happen. I'm not so sure. The judge's name, and the judge hasn't done anything wrong at this juncture, so don't be mad at the judge or anything. I hope that this judge does the right thing. Judge Karen Moore in Snohomish County Superior Court is the judge who's going to be making this decision on Monday. I reached out to a few individuals who are connected with the criminal justice system in Snohomish County, asked, what do we know about this judge? Is there any sort of fear that this judge could make a bad decision in this case and let an illegal alien cop killer go free? And they weren't sure. They didn't have a strong yes. They didn't have a strong no, but didn't think that some attention toward this case would hurt matters any. So I think it's important that everybody knows what's going on. And the defense team also had made, so I mentioned the argument where they're saying, well, this is misconduct, right? They broke the sanctuary laws and reached out to ICE and it violates it. But they also argue in here that in doing so, and in their client's status as an illegal alien coming out, that they basically tainted the whole jury pool. So part of their argument is also to argue that their client can't get a fair jury trial in Snohomish County. They said the accusation against Mr. Benitez Santana includes the charged question of whether a Latino man who has been maligned by the media, the public, and elected officials as an undocumented Mexican criminal unlawfully caused the death of a police officer. According to the defense motion, the state reasonably should have known that including information about the client's immigration status in a publicly filed court document would result in its dissemination to the public and could materially prejudice the process. So I don't know what to make of this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a good feeling about it. The fact that we should be in a jury trial today and the decision isn't going to be made till Monday gives the judge an awful lot of time to think, and maybe an awful lot of time for people to get in her ear, or the media to do what the media does. So I'm very worried about it. And it's heartbreaking, certainly for us as supporters of law enforcement, but I think for every rationally thinking Washingtonian who remembers very well how painful the loss was of Trooper Gadd. I mean, young kids, wife, pretty new to the patrol, just a horrifying ordeal under any circumstance, regardless of who the killer was. But to know that it could have been prevented if not for our misguided sanctuary policies, and now to wonder whether the case is even going to be allowed to move forward because of those same sanctuary policies is utterly insane. So if anyone wants to argue that sanctuary policies don't protect criminals, they absolutely do. In this case, it was unlawful for the prosecutor's office to try to get a cop killer in the country illegally held by ICE. Our state won't allow them to do that. So don't even give me this nonsense that sanctuary policies are just about, making sure that people aren't harassed based on their skin color or aren't looking around, looking over their shoulder while they go out in our communities and just try to live their life. Sanctuary policies are dangerous. Sanctuary policies are deadly. Sanctuary policies are wrong. And that's why if the worst case scenario happens on Monday, the federal government has to intervene. There have to be federal charges that can be brought in this case. I mean, certainly you could deport the guy, right? I mean, he's remained in ICE custody. So ICE did, take him into custody when the bail was lowered. So he hasn't gotten out during this period of time. So at the very least, ICE can deport him from the country. But what's to say, and what kind of consequence is that? So, your consequence is you go home to Mexico and just live your life there like nothing ever happened, like you didn't kill a state trooper. So I don't know if there's something else the federal government can do. Can there be some sort of federal charge for the murder? I don't know. But it's certainly something that needs to be on the federal government's radar. I know Homeland Security Investigations is already aware of the situation and ICE is already aware of the situation. So we'll see what they can do. At the very least, deport him. But that is not enough. That is not enough. And that's not justice. So I'm very hopeful that this Judge Karen Moore, does the right thing, doesn't throw the entire case out over the actions, the well-intentioned actions of a staff member at the prosecutor's office who is only trying to do what prosecutors are supposed to do, which is protect the community from dangerous people and from further victimization. But in this state, you can't do that if the dangerous person has brown skin or black skin. Can't do that. Because that's racist or whatever it is. It's absolutely insane. Breaks my heart. I'm going to hope for the best over the weekend. Won't be able to get it out of my mind until a decision comes on Monday. So I want all of you to know what's happening. I want you to share news of this far and wide. And certainly we'll be looking to the federal government once again to intervene in our state's absurdity if this guy is let off the hook. All right. Speaking of our state's absurdity, RFK Jr. was before Congress for a hearing and had a little, I don't know if you saw this, tit for tat with Senator Patty Murray. Why is Senator Patty Murray all of a sudden out so publicly? This woman used to disappear she'd disappear for 6 years. And then she'd come out of the woodwork during a campaign season. But she's not really in a campaign time right now. I don't even know if she's going to run again.
Well, I think she's just like one of the heads of TDS in
Central.
Congress. And then Pelosi was looking and acting so old, they've kind of pushed her to the back. So
now it's got to be Patty Murray. Great spokesperson for the cause. So anyway, she tries to, and look, congressional hearings have gotten ridiculous on both sides. There's interesting exchanges that come out of them, but for the most part, all the members of Congress are just grandstanding. They're not actually trying to get answers to their questions. They're just trying to revel in their 15 minutes of fame and make a point that they can splice and put on social media and say, I owned the libs, or I owned the Trump, or whatever it is. But this one was very interesting because it was actually fairly substantial and also proved, I think, a good point. So RFK Jr. is there testifying. Senator Patty Murray tries to bring up how the Trump administration has wronged one of her constituents here in Washington state. So here is the initial exchange between RFK Jr. and United States Senator Patty Murray.
Mr. Secretary, one of my constituents, her name's Natalie Phelps. She's a mom of two from Bainbridge, Island in Washington State. She has been fighting aggressive stage 4 colorectal cancer for nearly 5 years now. Her best hope now is a clinical trial she's participating in at the NIH Clinical Center. She flew out to NIH a few weeks ago for her first appointment, and her care team there wanted her to come back in 4 weeks to start treatment. But because of the thoughtless mass firing of thousands of critical employees across NIH and HHS that you carried out, Natalie's doctors at that clinical center have told her they have no choice but to delay her treatment by an additional 4 weeks. Now, an extra 4 weeks may not sound like a long time, but I will tell you, for stage 4 cancer patients like Natalie, this could mean the difference between life and death. Secretary Kennedy, how many staff have been cut from the NIH's clinical center? I want a specific number.
I can't tell you that now, Senator Murray. What I can tell you is that if you contact my office tomorrow, I'll look specifically into that.
Well, that is not acceptable. I want an answer back by that. She deserves it. I do it. She doesn't have much time. She deserves an answer back.
Wouldn't you rather get her into that clinical trial as fast as you can?
Absolutely.
All right, so if you contact my office tomorrow, this is if that happened.
You are here to defend your budget. I'm here to ask you questions about the impact of that.
Well, you asked me about a specific case that I want to help with. I don't think anybody,
but there are.
I don't think that should happen to anybody.
Okay, well, what have you, and I mean you personally, done to assess how those staff cuts are impacting patient care? She is one of many. What have you done to assess that?
I provided the guidelines that said that no clinical trials should be affected by the cuts. I have, Matt Mamoli.
Mr. Secretary, I just have a short amount of time. They are impacting clinical trials.
You asked me a question. Do you want me to answer it?
I want to tell you, you need to know this. You're here to defend the NIH budget, which
Senator, do you want me to answer your question?
Well, I want
me to answer your question, Senator.
Tell you that Natalie is sitting there waiting for treatment.
And I'm offering to help her, but you don't care.
Mr.
You don't care about Natalie.
I reclaim my time.
I've offered to help Natalie.
I am asking you a question, and it is critical. You are here to defend cutting NIH by half. Do you genuinely believe that that won't result in more stories like Natalie's?
I think the cuts that are now proposed by the NIH are going to hurt. I think that President Trump, listen, there's no agency head in the government like myself that wants to see their budget cut. And
I asked you, have you personally assessed what this is doing to patients? And I am telling you one story of one person. It is impacting life or death situation. I think it's.
You want me to answer your question, Senator?
Well, you did.
Oh, I have not. You have not allowed me to answer it.
Wow. Head of the agency, contact my office, we'll get her help. Contact my office, we'll look into her case. Well, that's not enough. That's not why you're here. And as he rightfully points out, she doesn't care about her constituent. She's using her constituent as a political pawn to make a point and a dunk on the Trump administration, which is genuinely disgusting. And I would also add, they take a recess, right? Give a little break, come back. And during that recess, RFK Jr. decides to look into Natalie's case so he can come back and maybe have some good news, like, hey, great news, we're going to get her into that clinical trial. I mean, Senator Patty Murray's literally saying Natalie will die without the clinical trial, and these cuts are the thing that's keeping her from the clinical trial. Here's what RFK Jr. found out.
I want to clarify an issue that we talked about before. Senator Murray had raised the issue of a constituent of hers who she said had been denied a place in a clinical trial in Washington due to the RIF. We've been able to run down that case. The patient was medically ineligible for that trial.
Medically ineligible?
Medically ineligible. It had nothing to do with the RIF. And NIH had been trying to get her into another clinical trial, but none of our clinical trials were shut down because of the RIF. That was a canard.
Yeah, it was virtue signaling using a cancer patient who's near death genuinely disgusting. And good for him for so quickly during that recess tracking that case down, finding out not only was she medically ineligible for that particular program, but NIH, because she was medically ineligible for that one, was trying to get her into another one. They were already proactively working with her behind the scenes. Senator Murray should be ashamed of herself. Of course, she will not be. And I'm very glad that RFK Jr. had the wherewithal to call her out, say, you don't care about your constituent. I'm offering to help and you're ignoring me. And then to go out and get the information to prove her wrong and to say so publicly. Disgusting stuff, truly. I don't know what's going on with Patty Murray lately. I think Nicole has a good point. She's probably trying to, take the reins for Nancy Pelosi sort of in the public and all these efforts to dunk on Trump. Another one of them that had an intersection between the Trump administration and Patty Murray, he came out, so he did a Truth Social post specifically about the Digital Equity Act, which is something that was pushed by Patty Murray. So he said, I've spoken with my wonderful Secretary of Commerce, and we agree that the Biden-Harris so-called Digital Equity Act is totally unconstitutional. No more woke handouts based on race. The Digital Equity Program is a racist and illegal $2.5 billion giveaway. I'm ending this immediately and saving taxpayers billions of dollars in the process. So he put that out, and then almost immediately, the $16 million that was going to Washington State through the Digital Equity Act was nixed. And of course, Senator Patty Murray is not happy about that. And basically what this is it would have, I don't think it would have, but the idea was that it would improve equity and cybersecurity literacy among people of color in Washington State. Okay, so that's the idea behind it. Here's what Senator Patty Murray said about the program being deemed racist and unconstitutional by the Trump administration. She says, as usual, the president has no idea what he's talking about. I wrote the Digital Equity Act to help close the digital divide in America. It's about making sure seniors can get online and equipping every student in every classroom with the tools they need to succeed, whether that's a hotspot to take home or a laptop. My law provides maximal flexibility to cities, states, and tribes so every local community can decide for themselves how they invest digital equity dollars. That's why it passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. Let's be clear. Every time President Trump refuses to spend funding appropriated by Congress, he's stealing from the American people. She says it's absolutely insane that resources meant to help red and blue communities, everyone from local school districts and libraries to workforce training programs and tribes, close the digital divide will be illegally blocked because the president doesn't like the word equity. Now, I don't know. We're going to look into this and see truly how that money was being used in Washington State, $16 million. She's saying that equity wasn't just about black and brown communities and prioritizing them. It was also about rural communities, about helping connect the elderly, be it with a hotspot or a computer for a child who's underprivileged to take home. If that's the case, maybe I feel differently about it. Maybe I feel differently about this program. I do agree that, equity tends to be a word that's now going to be flagged, right? And I don't want them to just come up with creative names to call stuff so they avoid using equity. And then the process is still the same as you're picking winners and losers. But if you're basically saying that the program is for anyone who is underprivileged in some way or having an issue with digital access, whatever it is, like computer at home, internet hotspot, rural areas, I would probably feel differently about that particular program. So we're going to look into it and see who's right or wrong there. But just another example of the Trump administration and Senator Patty Murray butting heads. All right, unhinged. The Washington Education Association had its annual sort of gathering, so the state teachers union in Spokane, where the WEA president spoke. And as you probably expect, it was completely ideologically driven, and he is off his rocker when it comes to what's happening with education in Washington State. So we'll have that coming up next. First, if you're concerned about tariffs and how tariffs might be impacting your retirement portfolio, our friend Zach Abraham at Bulwark Capital is having another one of his Know Your Risk live webinars coming up on Thursday, May 22nd. Totally free to register. It's virtual, so you can join, you can listen in. If you feel like asking questions, you can do that. They're going to go over how the market is reacting to recent tariffs and how they could impact retirement portfolios. They'll do a longer-term outlook for 2025, plus a full reveal of how Bulwark is always looking for opportunities to lower risk, lower cost, give your retirement as much upside as possible. So sign up for Zach's free webinar, Tariff Edition. Thursday, May 22nd. Register now at knowyourriskradio.com. That's knowyourriskradio.com. Again, totally free. So take time today to register if you'd like to check it out. All right. You already know how bad this is going to be. So the WEARA, what does the RA stand for? I don't know. It's called the 2025 WEARA. Their annual gathering, right, of all the insane members of the
Representative Assembly.
Representative Assembly.
There
Okay,
you go.
got it. So all the union members gather in Spokane from the teachers union and talk about how wonderful and woke they are and how bad Donald Trump is and white supremacy and all this stuff. It was truly nutso. So speaking at the assembly was Larry Delaney, who's the WEA president. Let's listen to some of it, shall we? So first he starts off by complaining how hard it is to be an educator.
Delegates, I can honestly say that in my lifetime, there has never been a more difficult time to be an educator.
Wow.
And as we gather for this Representative Assembly today, public education, civil rights, human rights, and the very pillars of democracy are under attack. While the leaders of this nation threaten to dismantle the Department of Education, erase the histories that challenge white supremacy like Black history, the history of Native and Indigenous communities, women's history, and erase our transgender students and colleagues completely. Those leaders who are supposed to support us, who have the power to push back against the highest offices in our country, have abdicated their power, placing more importance on a cult of personality than the needs of our most marginalized students, friends, and educators.
Yeah, we're erasing transgender students completely simply by saying you can't be a boy and play against girls, erasing them completely. He goes on to, of course, talk about the virtues of the union.
Things feel fragile, and at times, things feel bleak. And delegate, that is why, right now, unions are more important than ever.
Give us your money.
History has shown us, our own experiences have shown us, it is in these tough times when we see the true value of union solidarity. And WEA, I can tell you tonight that we were made for times like this. Public education is a civil right. Public education is a civil right. Every child has the right to a public education that values and respects every student, regardless of where they or their parents were born, the pronouns they use, their gender, sexual orientation, ability, religion.
Yeah, every student also has a right to an education where they actually learn something. Shocking, I know, where they actually leave with an education. So obsessed. Oh, they deserve to have an education that respects their pronouns. How about we talk about what education is actually supposed to accomplish? And of course, talk a lot about Donald Trump and the attacks that they're under and the criticism of the WEA. And he's proud. He's proud that the WEA makes people angry.
Delegates, this work will not be easy and will require all of us to make sacrifices. We may lose relationships. We may be called out publicly ourselves. We may find ourselves on lists somewhere. But this fight is a righteous fight, and that will be our strength. I have a Post-it note in my office that says, people are always going to be pissed at you. Just make sure they're the right people.
Talking about me?
Let's go piss off the right people.
I'm not so much pissed off. I'm just, I'm not even disappointed. Grossed out. Horrified that you think what you're doing is righteous and you think pushing radical gender ideology and racism at schools is somehow more important than academic achievement, which should be the core of what you're doing. Also speaking at this WEA assembly was Attorney General Nick Brown, who, of course, had to wax poetic about all the hard work he's been doing against Orange Man Bad.
And frankly, it saddens me that so much of my job and the job of the people in my office right now is defending Americans from their president. But each of the cases that we are bringing highlights the extraordinary lengths that this administration is willing to go to rewrite our Constitution, to redefine what it means to be a citizen in this country, and to pit Americans against each other. So we are actively engaged in this fight. We are actively defending students' civil rights on a host of concerns. We are standing up to protect gender-affirming care for our young people in this state.
Yay for butchery!
We are standing up to give trans students the same opportunities as their peers. We have made crystal clear that diversity, equity, and inclusion is legal in the state of Washington.
Can you imagine a sadder room to be in? Can you imagine a room where you would feel more out of place? Next year, I want to know what it is, and I want to infiltrate it in a costume. Okay, this is the plan for next year. Next year,
okay,
I will infiltrate the WEARA in a costume.
Okay.
And report from within.
Gosh, I think that'd just be torture.
Yeah, it would.
Just seeing what they're doing to children.
I mean,
what their priorities are.
Obsessed.
Unreal.
I mean, you hear them just cheer. We're defending mutilation and butchery.
Woo!
Yeah, yes. Cut breasts off. Like, that is mental.
It is.
And it's scary to hear how many people cheer for it, because you want to think and you want to believe that this is just a small subset, and it's like, oh, it's just a few teachers who feel this way. No, it's a lot, and it's very, very concerning. And then, what good would a left-wing gathering be without some chanting? Here's WEA VP Janny White attempting to lead the group in a little bit of chanting.
For it is the unity that finds strength, and it is the collective action that we bring about lasting change. One more time, turn to your partner and say, we are more alike. Say it one more time. That's right. We have powerful decisions to make here at the RA. As we do this work, let's remember the words of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who taught us injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Whether we face inequities in our schools, if we face them in our streets, if we face them within our institution and governs us, we must fight together. Say, we must fight together.
Isn't it interesting that she's having them turn to each other and say, we're more alike than we are different, after they spent all that time railing on like half of the country and probably 40% of the state and families that send their kids to public schools, who voted for the president, who don't support the radical gender ideology. So they don't believe that we're more alike than we're different, because they'd never stand across from someone who voted for Donald Trump and say that. So they want everyone to be loving and accepting. Oh my God, except if you're a Republican. Loving, accepting, inclusive. Oh my God, except if you voted for Donald Trump. Loving, accepting, inclusive. Oh, unless you don't support the butchery of children. It's wild stuff. And then there was also this WEA questionnaire that was sent out that we obtained. Our friend, can we say who sent it to us? Our friend Alicia Perkins sent it to us. Thank you, Alicia. Where they were sending out a questionnaire for potential school board candidates. So if you're thinking about running for the school board, it sounds like this is essentially, you'd have to fill this out for the WEA to determine whether it's going to support your candidacy for the school board. And it was a long list. We pulled out just some of the lowlights. Do you identify as Black, Indigenous, or as a person of color? Yes or no? So, of course, that's going to be key in whether they support your candidacy. Do you have an anti-public education opponent, like someone from Moms for Liberty? Because if you do, they're going to get in the fight, right? Do you support continued anti-racism training for staff and students in Washington schools? Do you support fixing our upside-down tax code and policies that raise progressive revenue? In case there's any doubt that the WEA is just an arm of the Democratic Party, and a far-left arm of the Democratic Party. This obviously clearly illustrates that for you. Do you support policies that promote racial equity, eliminate discrimination, and combat racism in our public schools and colleges? Do you support policies that promote LGBTQIA+, transgender, and non-binary students and staff in our public schools and colleges? Teaching the truth. This is the one that was honestly concerned me the most. It said opponents of public education are making systemic efforts to dismantle the freedoms of students, educators, and faculty, from restricting how we teach history to book bans to denying the very existence of the LGBTQIA+ community. Educators and faculty are under attack. Educators teach students the critical thinking skills they need to be problem solvers. Do you support and will you defend the freedom of educators and faculty to teach fact-based curriculum? Is that fact-based curriculum like boys can be girls? Because, it's a lot. And then this one also, good Lord, testing. So first it has kind of a statement. WEA supports high expectations and standards for all students in public schools and on college campuses. That's good, right? Then it says, we also know the learning styles and needs of students vary, as do the challenges communities face. So, do you support reducing the number of unnecessary standardized tests and allowing local teacher-designed methods of assessing learning? So basically, do you support doing away with tests and just letting individual teachers decide whether a student has learned something in their class? Nuts. Do you oppose vouchers and other types of similar programs, such as voucher payments for home-based and private elementary and secondary education? And do you oppose efforts to expand Washington's charter schools? So there is no place in the WEA for conservatives or moderates. There's no place in the WEA for anyone who dissents from the progressive worldview. And that means there is no place in classrooms for a moderate thinking teacher, for an independent-minded teacher, or for God forbid, a conservative teacher. And so that means if there's no place for those people in teaching a classroom, there's no place for students who come from families who might be conservative, or who have parents who might be moderate or independent-minded and might not buy into the idea that radical gender ideology should be pushed on kids starting at a young age, or who don't believe that boys should participate against girls, or who believe that tests are a good barometer for a school's success. So basically, the WEA has shown that it's only concerned with the education of students on the left. It's only concerned with pushing their left ideology on kids. It's only concerned with serving families who will align with and abide by that ideology. And it's why the WEA is one of the most dangerous entities in the state of Washington and continues to be responsible for our state's decline. Not to mention that our public school systems are in disarray. As they meet in Spokane and talk about all these ideologically driven issues and ignore education and academic achievement, our test scores are failing, enrollment is down, attendance is down. In fact, there was a resolution put forth that would have simply stated that it's their platform that student attendance is vital to student success. That's all it would have said. Student attendance is vital to student success. While they were debating it, someone in the room yelled, "That perpetuates white supremacy culture." So the WEA board recommended a no pass, and it was voted down. A simple statement that you have to go to school to be successful in school. Doesn't that seem like a no-brainer? In order to be successful in school, you have to go to school first. Nope, that perpetuates white supremacy culture. Can't have that. Wow. Good Lord. Kudos to anyone who sat through that is sane, because I can't imagine what that experience was like. Meanwhile, as all of that's happening, some cuts are happening in local school districts, and this is self-inflicted. So you're going to see these headlines more and more frequently, because this is where summer months going into the next school year, not only are you going to see the cuts start to play out, but of course, every freaking school district in the state is going to go on strike because now they're going to be paid to do so. So it's going to be a hot mess. So the cuts are starting. A lot of this is because schools in the state misused one-time COVID funds, and they were warned against it. Hey, don't spend one-time COVID funds on things that you're going to need reoccurring funding for, because that funding might be there. Oops, it's not. So that money isn't there anymore. So of course they're going to have these cuts, not to mention when you have enrollment decline as rapidly as it has in Washington state public schools, that also means you have less money coming in because you're getting money per student, right? Per school district. And then the media isn't going to tell you that full story, because they're going to tell the sob story of, oh my gosh, sad cuts to education. They're not going to say anything about why, about the irresponsibility that led to it, about the decline in enrollment and why more families are leaving the public school system. No, they're just going to tell the sad stories. This is one of them from King 5 News. Beloved school crossing guard among Tacoma Public Schools staff being cut. Miss Peggy has worked at Washington Elementary School for nearly 30 years. At least 114 educational support professionals are being impacted by district budget cuts. And look, Miss Peggy looks awesome. Miss Peggy looks like a cool chick. Like, she absolutely is going to help kids cross that street safely. I'm not going to deny that at all. Here's King 5 News with Miss Peggy.
I heard you're retiring this year. I'm not retiring. I'm laid off. I recently got an email that said that they appreciate my work I've done for the district, but I'm let go. And if anything comes up that I am qualified for, I can go ahead and apply for it.
Miss Peggy is one of at least 114 educational support professionals being impacted by district budget cuts, either having their jobs eliminated or hours cut back, according to their union.
I mean, come on. There's not any place else that we can take a little cut in the budget? Is there anybody that's not quite as important to the actual students? Because we're worried about the students here.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't know anything about Miss Peggy other than she looks like a nice lady. Looks like the kids really love her. Colorful, fun. Totally looks like she loves being around kids. I wish she wasn't losing her job. But she shouldn't be mad at anyone except the WEA and Washington State Democrats. That's where anyone who's upset by this should be directing their ire. Because cuts like this were entirely preventable if schools were doing what they're supposed to be doing, focusing on academic achievement. We wouldn't have so many parents pulling their students out of school, so you wouldn't see that loss in revenue. And then had they not made irresponsible budget decisions during the pandemic, then we wouldn't be in this position either. And also, we should note, King 5 News has no mention of any of that. No mention in the story of enrollment drops, no mention of low test scores, no mention of how they spent COVID funds, nothing. All this was, from King 5's perspective, is a sad story about a sweet lady who dresses really colorfully and helps kids get across the crosswalk in Tacoma Public Schools. That's a failure of the media. Again, they're doing no service to viewers to help them understand what's actually going on here. And you're going to continue to see throughout the whole summer, it'll be story after story after story. And remember what your job is. I give you many jobs, but one of your jobs is to be in the comments of every single one of those stories, pointing out why this is happening, making sure people connect the dots and they understand that this was because of a misspending of COVID funds, irresponsible budgeting, and a failure to focus on academic achievement. Every single one of those stories. Don't let them off the hook. All right, we'll get to our segment Unbelievable next, where we get back to what I have called the most annoying workers in America. You already know. I have encouraged you guys to take the First Mark Challenge. You could be one of our First Mark victories. We have so many undivided viewers and listeners who've taken the First Mark Challenge, now moved all their insurance over to First Mark, and are saving thousands of dollars a year, not to mention getting incredible service. One of those people is Brock Heward, famous sports host, who took the First Mark Challenge with his family.
Yeah, you are technically their customer, but you will find this out when you make that call. They're your teammate right alongside with you, only wanting the best for you and rooting for the best for you and taking away all the stress and confusion that comes with this crazy insurance world.
Yeah. And for me and my family too, I mean, you think you know how insurance works and you can do it on your own, but then when we went through it, it's so confusing. And we were paying for things we didn't even need. And then we didn't have enough insurance in places where we really could have been left in a difficult situation if the worst happened. So First Mark can help you with all of that. FirstMarkInsurance.com, FirstMarkInsurance.com. Set aside time to take the First Mark Challenge today. The very best part is they work for you. All right, the whiny Starbucks baristas are at it again. Let's talk about it in our segment, Unbelievable. All right, you probably heard that more than 1,000 Starbucks baristas are on strike to protest their new dress code. Gosh, a broader range of dark colors and patterned shirts. Starbucks said new rules would make its green aprons stand out and create a sense of familiarity for customers as it tries to establish a warmer, more welcoming feeling in its stores. But Starbucks Workers United, the union that represents workers at 570 of Starbucks' 10,000 company-owned stores, said the dress code should be subject to collective bargaining. So speaking of Starbucks Workers United, they've been all over social media talking about this walkout and the reason behind it.
This isn't just about clothes. It's about control. Right now, union Starbucks workers across the country are putting on runways and walking out on strike. Because once again, Starbucks made a big decision about our jobs without bargaining with us. And this time, it's a new restrictive dress code, one that we're paying for out of pocket. So we're walking in to say no more. And newsflash, making baristas wear certain shades of black doesn't make the customer experience any better. Policing what we have on doesn't fix short staffing or long lines, and it certainly doesn't help with baristas dealing with understaffing, lack of hours, and low pay. They think they can tell us how to dress, expecting us to spend money on new shoes or pants just to be in compliance with the new dress code. While we're already stretched thin and struggling to pay our bills as is, I don't think so. So here's what we're doing. We're flipping it. We're calling out this power grab for what it is. Workers in stores around the country are walking out this week, demanding Starbucks bargain with us and provide everything we need to be in dress code. To make one thing crystal clear, our union rejects this dress code in our nearly 600 growing union stores. And until Starbucks bargains with us, as is their legal obligation, we're not backing down. If Starbucks wants to talk about what we wear, they can come to the table and bargain. Until then, we'll keep organizing, keep showing up for each other, and keep escalating, because this fight just isn't about uniforms. It's about respect, rights, and a real contract. We're not here to play dress up. We're here to win.
Is there a more entitled group of people in America than a Starbucks union barista? I mean, just the language. They think they can tell us what to wear. This is about control. It's a job. You work for them. It's a job. They pay you, right? And it's a choice, right? Is anyone forcing you to work there? There are many, many coffee shops all across America. If Starbucks is such a dictatorship. And it's not even like it's that big of a change. I mean, you guys know this is stupid. Stupid to argue the merits of this dumb argument that they're walking out over having to wear black shirts versus a wider range of dark colored shirts. And like they said, it's not really about the dress code. It's about the fact that they didn't ask our permission first. They just did it without consulting us. And we won't have that. And I just love how the pictures they're posting are proof positive. Oh my God, I almost threw my back out laughing just now. Holy smokes, I just pulled a muscle in my back. Proof positive why they need a stricter dress code. Please tell me they weren't wearing their aprons over that. See little sexy fishnets. You know, it's just a little skirt and some fishnets. And why do they all look the same? Mm-hmm. Why do they all have the same glasses, same hair, and they love wearing black? They're all wearing black.
I know, it's their favorite color.
They just don't want to be told to. They just never mention. Starbucks like pays for your higher education. Mm-hmm. In Seattle, they're making over $20 an hour. Starbucks doesn't even want you to stay there. Starbucks wants you to get an education and then get a real job. It's not meant to be a long-term job. It's meant to be for college students, maybe, you know, stay-at-home mom who wants to work part-time, or a retiree who just needs a few hours, just needs a little supplemental income. It is insane, but this is so indicative of that generation. And frankly, Starbucks has given in to so much nonsense over the years that now these employees think they're emboldened, right? It's just like the left-wing activists. They're emboldened. Oh, we'll just make our demands. You can't tell us what to wear. Yeah, they can. It's a job, you know. It's not North Korea. You're not in a labor camp. And it's not every Starbucks barista. Please don't spit in my drinks. Our Starbucks down the street from here, they are all so polite. Don't you think? They're all so sweet down there. They're so polite.
Yes,
they're so normal looking.
They are.
They present themselves very well. So it's not every Starbucks store. It's not every Starbucks barista. It's a lot of the ones in Seattle, for sure, and in Manhattan. It's just wild. And I don't know why the company doesn't come in and just be like, okay, you wear it or you're fired.
Well, is
I
that
know
part
there's
of the
some
union busting
things, but you can't just, it's not, you can't, right? You can fire them. What if they walk out every day over everything? Like, oh, you're upcharging for almond milk. We're not working today. You're making me wear a black shirt. We're not working today. I don't think that they can just get away endlessly with walking off the job.
Right, especially because they already had a dress code. It's just a change
it's a tweak.
To the dress code. So I would think that would be enforceable, but I don't know. I guess they would have to just cite them, however many times,
close down the store.
do the whole thing.
Close down the stores. Close down the stores, open them up in an area that's less crazy. That's what you do. You close down the store and you say, like they did in Seattle, oh, it's public safety reason, which in Seattle, I think that was actually the case. But if you got a store that's unionizing in an area and you can come up with some sort of other excuse, it's underperforming, we're going to close this store down, open up a few more stores in Texas or whatever you need to do. Just absolutely nuts. The generation is doomed. Doomed. But please don't spit in my drink, okay? Please don't spit in my drink. All right, we'll move on to national news coming up next. Great edition of Florida Report for you. First, Eastside Weight Loss Clinic has been great. It's not Ozempic. It's Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. Couple people now telling me, oh, are you on Ozempic? No, I'm on the Eastside Weight Loss Clinic maintenance program, and it's going great. I'm down 43 pounds. I've never felt better. Feel like I, for the first time in my life, have control of my weight. They basically teach you what to eat in the right portions, how to lose weight. You can lose weight really quickly on the program the first 60 days, and then how to maintain that weight loss for life. I've maintained the weight loss for 2.5 years. Have even lost some additional weight since my first round on the Eastside Weight Loss Clinic program. So look, it's not right for every person. It's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. I mean, you do have to commit to the program, especially for those first 60 days. But the results speak for themselves. EastsideWeightLossClinic.com. EastsideWeightLossClinic.com. Schedule a free 15-minute consultation with Dr. Ryan Coogan and his team. Okay, I got to talk about Gavin Newsom quick. This is kind of a long soundbite. But it's nuts. I've never seen anything so nuts in my life. I really don't. So I talked on the show, I think yesterday or earlier on this week about how...
a couple days this week. I feel like you're really into this Gavin Newsom.
He has lost his mind. But it's so transparent.
It's transparent. It's been this like transformation. It's so obvious what he's doing.
Right? You would think. But then it's like...
a whole different person.
People paying attention? I mean, he clearly wants to run for president. So he thinks there's enough time between now and the 2028 cycle where he can totally shapeshift and remake himself and act like he's not responsible for any of the bad stuff that has happened in California. Because of course he came out earlier in the week and said, we're going to tell cities they got to clear homeless encampments. This is enough. And we're letting people die. It's like, dude, you've been the governor for 6 years. You were the lieutenant governor before that. You were the mayor of San Francisco before that. And you have contributed in large part to the extent of the homelessness crisis in the state of California. So anyway, he's asked a question. The question was about, hey, do you take, any responsibility for this in essence? It's 2 minutes or something, right? I've got to play the whole thing because it is jaw-droppingly crazy and the lack of self-awareness is wild. Here it is.
On behalf of the taxpayers of the state, in the spirit of Ashley's question, I'm not interested. I'm just not, as a taxpayer, not just governor, I'm not interested in funding failure anymore. I'm not. I won't. Time to do your job. People are dying on their watch. How do people get reelected? Look at these encampments. They're a disgrace. They've been there years and years and years and years. I've heard that same rhetoric for years. People are dying. Kids are being born. Overdoses. I met a young man, literally, was out there doing Project Homeless Connect, reaching out near the 405 freeway. I found out the next day he was dead. In the name of compassion.
Yeah.
Because we had a notice. I could have helped him that night. I felt like a fraud. I felt like I let him down.
You are a fraud.
We got to be more aggressive. I saw a young child, a young kid in San Diego. I was with the mayor of San Diego right before his State of the State. This poor kid was addicted to meth. He was a wonderful kid. And he said, I'm really glad you came. He goes, I'm struggling. And there in the tent with his wife was a newborn baby. He said, thank you for coming. There's no compassion in denying what the hell's going on in the streets and sidewalks.
Then why have you done it for so long?
They need to step up. Enough of the rhetoric. I'm serious. Enough of the rhetoric. People are dying in this state. It is a disgrace. It is one of the principal reasons people are so angry. They don't trust politicians. They don't like what they see. I'm sorry to get so intense about it. It's a moral issue. They need to do their job. And if they can't do it, let me know. Just say, we give up. And then we'll intervene.
Hey, I might vote for that guy.
It's
if you didn't know,
stunning.
He'd been there so long.
Stunning. I mean, him saying, how do people get reelected? That's what we want to know. How do people like you get reelected? It's a moral issue that you've all of a sudden adopted. People are dying they've been dying on the streets for years while you've been governor. Money's being wasted. Yeah, you've allowed it to be wasted. He knows that, and that's the thing. He knows that. He thinks he's so smart and so crafty and so charming that he can shapeshift just like that, and voters will forget about it. Between now and 2028, which, given our news cycles, 2 years is a lifetime. And I think there will be a lot of voters who forget about it. And I don't know the extent to which I think California media is better, shockingly, than Washington state media. And I was listening, and there were some actual good, hard questions asked of Gavin Newsom. And I've already seen some reports out of California being like, WTF is this? What is going on here? So it's just wild. And I'm just stunned the extent to which politicians are willing to reshape themselves and voters are willing to let them get away with it. Wild. All right, we got a good edition of Florida Report. Since I started the show talking about the devastating nature of our sanctuary policies, I thought it'd be nice to talk about how nice it is to live in a state like Florida, where not only are they not a sanctuary state, but they're actively trying to get illegal aliens off their streets. So let's talk about it with my sister in our segment, Florida Report.
It's not even controversial anymore. People know in Florida their freedoms are going to be respected.
Miranda, hello.
Hello.
All right, case in point while we do this segment, Florida just executed the largest joint immigration operation in state history. That's not happening here, in case you were curious. No. None of that's... well, maybe some of it, but not joint. No assistance from the state.
We're making up for your lack of involvement in the situation. In 1 week, they detained 1,120 illegal criminal aliens in the state of Florida. This was part of a huge group effort from all the state and local agencies that have agreed to assist the federal government. I believe it was called Operation Tidal Wave.
Makes sense.
And they arrested a lot of people. And like I said, in just 1 week. So I can't imagine the numbers as the year goes on and these efforts continue, what that's going to look like down here. A lot of these people they arrested are repeat offenders when it comes to like being deported and coming back into the country. In addition to that, they also have criminal records that are violent offenses, drug charges, all types of things, gang members.
Sex offenders.
So these are definitely sex offenders. These are people that should not be here. And obviously they've tried to get rid of them before and they just keep coming back in. So hopefully, in addition to this export effort of getting rid of them, the increased presence at the border will keep them from coming back in too.
Yeah, and it sounds like that is working. So most of these were from Guatemala, and then Mexico, Honduras, Venezuela, and El Salvador. And like you said, I mean, they represented multiple, I love how they're now saying, they were members of different violent foreign terrorist organizations, which is what they are. MS-13, Tren de Aragua, Brown Pride Aztecas, which I haven't heard of those ones yet. And the Barrio Aztecas, I'll have to look into those. And then the Serranos and 18th Street Gang. So good work, Florida. See, look what can happen. Look what can happen. Yeah. Meanwhile, in Washington State, they're debating letting a cop killer off the hook because some employee of the prosecutor's office notified ICE that he was in their facility. Anyway, it's just absolutely asinine. And then also, Florida ended up helping out North Carolina. There were 2 teens kidnapped in North Carolina. And it turns out they were kidnapped by illegal aliens and brought to Florida.
Yep, they were brought to Florida, arrested in Florida, and the 2 underage girls, 14 and 15 years old, were found with them. it looks like they didn't leave. They weren't like abducted. The girls left with them, but as minors, they don't get the choice to do that. So these two men not only are going to be facing, probably deportation as undocumented immigrants, but also kidnapping charges. And depending on more information on the situation, because these men are over 18, maybe other charges will come along with that too, being that the girls were underage.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, that's what can happen when you decide that you're not going to give a sanctuary to dangerous people and everyone's going to work together to get criminals off the streets. Just get criminals off the street. And if some of them are illegal, great. Let's get them out of the country as well. Okay. A follow up to a story we discussed last week. So the top Democrat in Florida's legislature defected from the party, became an independent, and as some people speculated, he is now running for governor as an independent. So what do we know?
So what do we know? We know that he, like you said, he was a Democrat for a long time. He stood on the floor just last month and announced in front of everybody he was leaving the Democratic Party. And just this week, he has made it public that he will be running for governor as an independent in the state. I'm kind of excited because I think one of the biggest hurdles that an independent, no matter what office you're running for, has is funding. He's very wealthy, and he does plan to self-fund his campaign. His net worth is like $50 some million.
That helps.
And he's already publicly said that he's got $25 million to put into his own campaign. So I think financially, he's kind of jumped that hurdle that independents already have to deal with. And then I do think because he was elected as a Democrat, he's going to maybe take some Democrats with him when he goes, which will really throw off any sort of chance the Democrats have of putting forward any sort of, candidate for governor next year.
Yeah, and they're very sour grapes about it. So his name is Jason Pizzo. And so he was, again, not just any Democrat. He was the Democratic majority leader. So, they loved the guy. And then he left the party and they hate the guy. And they were... Florida Democratic Party Chair Nikki Fried, Jason's failure to build support within our party for a gubernatorial run has led to his final embarrassing temper tantrum. I'd be lying if I said I'm sad to see him go, but I wish him the best of luck in the political wilderness he's created for himself. Doesn't that scream scorned lover to you? Because you're talking about your party's majority leader, and now you're like, oh, nobody liked him anyway? Interesting. Well, how did he become your party's majority leader if nobody liked him anyway and you're happy to see him go?
Yeah, and I think that he was probably who they were thinking of putting forward to run for governor as a Democrat. Yeah. And when I'm looking at all the people that have said that they're going to run, have already joined the race, the only Democrat left last month from the Republican Party and became a Democrat. So how much of a Democrat is this person anyway if they just turned over a leaf from Republican to Democrat a month ago? So I think the Democrats are in a wilderness of their own.
In a good way. Yes, very much so. And they're just flailing and upset. Yeah, that just cracks me up. But it shows you, it's all about party loyalty. It's not about the person. And so until you break free from that party, and what he said is by stripping myself of a title and party designation, it allows me to run free and clear, clean and transparent, and help many, many more people. And I agree with that because whatever party, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, you serve the party first. And I think that's the case for a majority of people who align themselves with a political party. Now, some are independent minded, and I think some do a good job of going against their party when it's necessary, but that's the exception, not the rule. So good luck to Jason Pizzo. We'll see who the big Republican challenger is going to be. I keep hearing people say Casey DeSantis.
Yeah, it's between her and this other, what was his name? Byron Daniel.
Oh, Byron Donalds. Yeah.
Yeah. So between the two of them, it'll be interesting to see who kind of comes out on top. I think this whole Hope Florida scandal is going to play a big role in whether or not she actually steps on to run for governor. But that's
Byron would be great too. So Congressman Donalds would be awesome too. So, all right, Miranda, we appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's not even controversial anymore. People know in Florida their freedoms are going to be respected.
Meow. Yeah, you know what? I'm all for seeing what an independent can do in a statewide race like Florida. I think given Ron DeSantis' success, I think whoever Ron DeSantis sort of ordains as the next governor is probably going to be the one to win. But of course, we'll track it all. All right, coming up next, our daily subscriber show poll question about ice cream. Topic I love. Even on Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. Yes, I do still love ice cream. Ben & Jerry's, maybe not so much. First, if you're thinking about listing your home, maybe you're had enough and you're moving out of the state, whatever reason, reach out to our friend Wes Jones at sellwithwes.com. Wes has been doing this for a long time in our area. He's been through the market ups and downs. He knows what it takes to sell a home for top dollar. One of the things I think you're going to notice about Wes Jones and his team is their marketing of your home. You're not going to find better marketing anywhere else. I mean, compare the listings, compare their listings to others, and they really have a way. I mean, their staging is phenomenal. Their photos, their video, it all looks fantastic. So they're going to make sure that your home stands out when it hits the market. And they can also help you make sure that cosmetic upgrades are done to your home if they believe that you're going to get that money back plus some on the back end. So Wes is going to come in, do it top to bottom, inside, outside. He's going to make recommendations for cosmetic upgrades. He can help manage the projects fully, bring in the contractors, and even allow you to pay for it at closing, so you don't have to come out of pocket a bunch of money before your home even sells. So sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com. He'll start by giving you a free market analysis so you know how much you can expect to get from your home. Sellwithwes.com. It is simply a better way to sell your home. With that, let's get to our daily subscriber show poll on Patreon, Locals, and X. A big welcome to all our new subscribers. Of course, we have a goal of hitting 300 new paid subscribers over the next 30 days. So a lot of you took us up on that yesterday in our promo code 300. We'll get to more of that in a moment. I asked you on Patreon, Locals, and X, are you more likely or less likely to purchase Ben & Jerry's ice cream because of the founder's political activism, which will become relevant in our closing sanity check? Nicole?
Less likely to purchase.
Were you purchasing it anyway?
I mean, not often, but you know, there's some good flavors in there. So when it goes on sale,
they have the fish food, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. But you know, it's like
and half baked.
Oh, half baked. It's like 1,200 calories a pint.
Oh, I know.
And if I'm eating it, I'm eating the pint. Let's be honest.
Exactly. So yeah, I haven't been eating it a lot. I typically go towards the more. I don't know if they're really healthy, but the ones that are marketed a little healthier.
Yeah.
They're still sugar.
I mean, Halo Top's a good option because you can eat the whole thing for 300 calories and it's not bad. Is it Ben & Jerry's? No. So my answer is no change because I kind of had gone away from eating it because of the calorie issue.
Yes.
You know, because there's other options.
Well, they have a low-cal one. So that's the one I would buy if I bought it. They have kind of a light one, I believe.
Gotcha. Okay.
But still, regardless, now I'm making a point. No more Ben & Jerry's. They're done.
There's too many other delicious options, right?
There's too many others. And they're not using their money for good. That's for sure.
Not one person on any of our platforms said it makes them more likely, which kind of tells you about who our audience is. Most people saying it makes them less likely or no change. Beth says no change. Quit buying it years ago. Guy Farting says the same thing. God, that name just kills me. That they swore off Ben & Jerry's quite a long time ago. Average Joe, if the choice is as easy as picking a different ice cream and it means you don't support the shit from the left, then it's a no-brainer. Christine, I haven't bought Ben & Jerry's since they boycotted Israel. Andy said the same thing after their 10-7 reaction. I will never give them my money again. Yeah, I support that choice. I agree. I mean, there's just too many options. There's too many good ice creams out there for you to support Ben & Jerry's. Again, we'll talk more about Ben & Jerry's coming up at our closing sanity check. First, Nicole, if you want to help me with this one, we have an event that has become an annual favorite thing for us to do for all of you Dory listeners who miss him dearly as we do. Of course, Emerald Downs hosts the Dory Monson Memorial Purse. It's the Preakness, right? Happening this weekend? Preakness.
I think so.
Yeah, because it coincides every year with the Preakness weekend.
I believe so.
Yeah, so it's happening this Saturday, May 17th, the Dory Monson Memorial Purse. And we have some limited general admission tickets for free if you go to Will Call and you use my name, Brandi Kruse. When they run out, you'd have to buy your own tickets to get in. It's not that expensive to get in.
But it's like $20 or something.
Yeah, we've got a few dozen. So if you get there early and you ask for tickets under my name for the Dory Monson Memorial Purse, we've got some free ones. And then, so just enjoy the races. The races start at 1:50. Dory's race usually happens around 3. But then you are invited to join us down at the winner's circle, so we can all get our picture taken with the winning horse of the Dory Monson Memorial Purse. So that's always a fun thing to do. So I'm going to be there. Nicole's not able to make it this year, but I will be there. I know Suzanne Monson will be there as well. And so we look forward to seeing you guys in the winner's circle after the Dory Monson Memorial Purse happening this Saturday. Doors Races start at 1:30. Dory's race usually around 3, and he loved the ponies.
I know.
So this is just a fun thing to do every year.
Support the Emerald Downs because there's apparently some talk of it being one of the racetracks that might be in trouble, and so I know that
like financially in trouble
that would break Dory's heart.
Yeah.
A bunch of racetracks. I think it's something that's not as popular as it used to be, I guess, maybe. And some of the smaller tracks are considering closing because they're not making enough money. And so there's been quite a few articles about Emerald Downs, trying to, remind people they exist, I guess.
I hope it's nice this weekend, though. Last year on the Memorial Purse, it was crappy out. Real crappy, rainy.
The weather is not perfect for the weekend, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun either
really
way.
bummed I can't.
We'll all get rained on together. All right, subscriber comments. Rochelle, this is funny. So we did this story earlier this week about PLU, Pacific Lutheran University, hosting queer prom for 14 to 24-year-olds, which we thought was weird, and then giving them free HIV testing. Rachel said, so I made a comment on a post on PLU's Facebook page after seeing your story about their queer prom. The comment I made was about donating to the school. I stated my disgust at their queer prom and how I would never donate to the school. And not only did they remove my comment, but they blocked me from being able to see their Facebook page. Just goes to show you how cowardly they are. I'm not even sure they can do that. Do they get public funds? I mean, I know they're a private institution, so maybe not. Maybe they can. Makes you wonder why they support something like that, but can't back up their reasoning when there's any sort of backlash. Yeah. Greg, pray for all Washingtonians. We are losing our parental rights and Transformers are invading our girls and women's safe spaces. All right. Let's see. Yeah. Transformers. Is that what we're calling them now? Transformers. Let's see. Matthew, not hearing anything about students or curriculum, just orange man bad and gender ideology.
It's true.
Of the WEA. Like, they're
Tests are
obsessed
in the toilet,
with
so
it.
let's just get rid of testing.
Obsessed with it. And it's like 1%, less than 1% of students obsessed with it. Crazy. Milk a man. In the words of MLK, not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Yeah, they don't believe that MLK quote.
Yeah, exactly. So she'll just pick and choose what she likes about that MLK speech.
Shannon, wow, and yet my child was bullied for a year. The counselor lied on a report against me and the school did nothing, had to finally get a restraining order on a 5th grader. Good grief.
I've been hearing so many bullying stories at schools.
Because no, they don't punish kids anymore, especially if the kid's skin color is not white. Then there's no punishment because that's inequitable. It's just wild. Let me see here. Shan, when I grew up public school was the best, but now they probably hand out teaching certificates to zombie studies graduates whom elbow proper teachers aside with the teachers union. Yeah. 100%.
I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, they will give you a teaching certificate with just like a year of teaching, whatever, but you can get your education can be in anything. Yeah. So it's pretty wild.
It is. Charlie, just saw an article where in the state of Mississippi is #1 in education, spending less than many other states. They have concentrated on a system of tutors that brings students up to speed with reading. Imagine that.
Right? Solving a problem. Here's a problem. Let's figure out a way to solve it that doesn't include gender ideology and sex education.
Jesus.
It's wild.
All right. Papa Woody, $2 super chat. I am the most marginalized. Why, are you a white dude? Then yes, you are. Sergeant Pickles, my 4-year-old is starting homeschool co-op soon. Yeah, I've heard those are getting more popular because then you kind of split the cost, right? So it's easier. Corinne, newsflash, 90% of companies require a uniform, man up or quit. Yeah, the job workforce is going to be really hard for you.
Yeah,
if
you can't.
Having to wear a black t-shirt triggers you in some form or fashion. It's wild. And as a barista, like most coffee shops have some sort of like t-shirt, something that you need to wear. It's just wild. All right, let's end. Beer in a Gray Matter, $5 super chat. This is why we need a voucher system allowing the money to follow the student to charter private, religious, public, and certified homeschoolers. Not if the WEA has anything to say about it. Absolutely cannot allow that. All right, good comments, you guys. Good comments.
Way, Barry James gave us $4. I think it was, I don't think I've seen his name, but just $4. No comment.
Nice. So. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, thank you, Nicole. Let's get to our closing sanity check. Buying Nicole a little bit of time there. All right, speaking of Ben & Jerry's, so Ben & Jerry co-founder Ben Cohen got arrested after disrupting that RFK Jr. hearing.
supports these goals and reflects.
The witness will suspend. The committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated.
Say RFK kills people with AIDS.
Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room.
I want one of those things.
Right.
Reminded, just slapping it. That's good. All right, maybe no Ben and Jerry's for me. Maybe no Ben and Jerry's.
Ben, I think he was on the side there getting that Capitol Police officer just yanked him out.
They're not having any of it. They jumped into action. All right, insane. That has been your closing sanity check. A reminder, we have a goal of adding 300 new paid subscribers over the next month. So if you've been listening, watching, if you love our content, we would appreciate you supporting it financially. It's how we continue to do this show. So to help encourage you, we're giving you 30% off your first year of Undivided. Just go to patreon.com/undivided and pop in that promo code 300, the number 300 for 30% off your first year. Help us reach our goal of 300 new paid subscribers. And with that, we have a fantastic episode of Sundays with subscribers coming up. So we'll look forward to that. We're going to talk to a detransitioner who took the internet by storm last week in sharing their story. They're going to be in for an in-depth interview. That's it, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to giving Common Sense a comeback. We appreciate every single one of you, paid or unpaid. We just appreciate the paid ones a little bit more. Right? Okay. All right. See some of you on Saturday, the Dory Monson Memorial Purse.